Well, greetings everyone, and shalom to you who believe. This time I'd like to bring out something that may bring up a lot of controversy. That's expected when you start speaking of things that I'm going to explain. Here in Revelations chapter 20, it's going to explain that there's no rapture according to the rapture that people think it is, and this battle that goes on with Gog and Magog is not actually for this present time. That's going to be after the 1,000-year reign of our King, which goes against a lot of people's beliefs and the prophecies. But like I've said in other videos, please put out your beliefs in the prophecies, okay, that are just speculation, okay, and things that you're putting your hope in instead of putting your hope and your trust in our King. And the only way you can do that is by keeping the 10 Commandments, the 613 give or take laws that you only personally have, less laws than it takes to drive your car to the store and back, to observe, to keep them 10 Commandments, and to put your trust in our King only. And this is a big chunk of meat, so if you're not used to any kind of meat and you're just starting to find out about the truth, please take what I say with a grain of salt, but prove it for yourself. You have to prove all things. That's what you're commanded to do. Prove it all. Hold fast to that which is righteous. Eat the meat off the bone. Throw the bone away. And what I'm about to give you here is a bunch of meat. So I do highly recommend that you put this video on pause, you ask a blessing, pray, and I'll be right here, put it back on play, and I'm going to pick up where you left off on your prayer. O Most High and Holy Heavenly Father, we praise you, we thank you on this Sabbath day, and I say Shabbat Shalom to all who believe. Shabbat Shalom to you, Father, through your righteous Son, Yahshua. Shabbat Shalom to you. I do pray, Yahshua, that, and I know this is going to be hard for many, and I don't know why I have this upon me, that I have to bring as much as I can, other than my bride, who is a long way away, may be able to hear these words of truth, and I don't even know if we'll ever be joined at this time or not. I don't know, but she needs your truth, and I have to treat her the best that I can. And to do that, I also have to teach the body, Yahshua, your bride. I do pray that you'll lead me in the words to do so, that they may not be offended, but they may seek you even more so, as these days are urgent that we do so. And I pray that you'll be with all of us, and that you'll shine upon us, that we may also gather that light ourselves and take the bushels off us, so that we may shine brightly, that you may be honored and glorified through the works of our hands. And Yahshua, I ask this in your righteous name, your holy name, and I also ask that for your name's sake that these things be done. Hallelujah, Yahweh. Alright, so let's jump right in here, okay? And, keep in mind what I was saying, because it's all explained here in Revelations chapter 20. Not only the first resurrection, but it talks of a second resurrection. And things are a lot different than what's being taught out there in the churches or in these cute little books that you pick up from men and women that are writing them that don't even have salvation because they do not honor the laws and commandments. They don't honor our King, but they're making a lot of money from y'all, just like those lying preachers. And unless they're teaching you truth, I highly recommend that you have them go down and put themselves on the unemployment list or something and gather checks that way instead of you paying them to deceive you. If they're not teaching you the difference between the clean and the unclean, the holy and the unholy or profane, then don't pay them. Quit it. You're just as guilty as them. You're supporting them, so you're just as guilty as they are. Leave these places, leave these dens of thieves. Seek our King, he told you, he will guide you. Read John, Yachanan, chapter 10. He says, if you'll put your trust in him, that he will teach you. He'll do it personally. I'm just a guide to our King. I've got a little light here, okay? I've got a light. I want you to have the light. I want you to pick it up. I want you to carry it. I can only show you the door. I can bring you to the path of salvation. It's narrow. It's got potholes and everything in there. It's full of tests and trials. But our King gave me a duty to bring you to that door. He is the door. You've got to knock on him. I can't do it. I've already knocked. Every time I go to knock, my hand goes right through it. There's no substance for me to knock again because I'm being heard. Every word I speak, I'm being heard. So I have to set my mind in advance to say the proper things, which is according to the laws and commandments, which you'll see here in this chapter as well. Revelation 20 verse 1, then I saw a Malach. Yes, I know that your scripture says angel. People pray to these angels. Angels are the messengers of Satan, the devil. To be an angel, they first had to have been a holy Malach. They were of the holy Malachim, a great body of messengers for our Creator. Satan chose to rise up and take the position of her head. Okay, and I'll just leave it at that part. If you know what a head is, and our head is choosing a bride, the bride is being prepared right now, and that's who I'm hoping I'm talking to. Either that or, come on, moth. Got a moth over here reading the scriptures on my screen. But the head of this body is the bride of our head, the King, Yahshua. And Satan chose to go against her head and was cast down, and she took about a third of the holy Malachim with her, and they all became angels. So when you pray to an angel, and even Yachanan in the chapter prior to this, it's in Revelation 19 verse 10, there was a Malach that went to Yachanan to give him a message, and Yachanan said he fell down at his feet, and the Malach said, don't do this, I'm like you are, Instead, I speak about the testimony of Yahshua. That's what you need to be doing, not praying to angels or worshiping angels. Well, worship also means to obey. If a Malach comes and tells you, hey, it's time to go, don't go back for your coat or anything. Leave with the Malach. You should know he's a Malach. Test the spirit if you got to. Say, hey, do you believe in Yahshua our King? And then run him through the test there in 1 Yachanan chapter 2 verses 1 through 6. Do you keep the commandments? Otherwise he can't even speak the name, and speaking the name means he has to be fulfilling that of that name. You have to be keeping the laws and commandments if there's any authority in the name that you speak. You are not of him unless you do what you are supposed to do, and that's represent him. And how do you do it? You uphold everything that he says. If you was working for a company and you went out and sold somebody else's stuff on the time clock where you're supposed to be selling for that company, well, you're not representing that company, you're representing someone else. And that's what everyone is doing when they call on different names or whatever. Or I've seen people call on the name of Father Yahweh. I've seen them call on the name of Yahshua, but they weren't representatives of him because they were breaking the Sabbaths and, doing things that they weren't supposed to do. Anyway, it says, then I saw a Malach coming down from heaven, having the key to the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. He laid hold of the dragon, that serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, and bound her for 1,000 years. And yes, I say her because Satan is a female spirit. There's male spirits, female spirits. There's other kinds of spirits too, okay? But she's going to be bound for 1,000 years. It says in verse 3, and he, talking about this Malach, cast her into the bottomless pit and shut her up and set a seal on her so that she should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years were finished. So she's going to be in this prison for 1,000 years. And at that time, our king's going to be ruling on the earth for 1,000 years. There's not going to be any salvation offered during that 1,000-year time, the millennial reign. The wedding supper is going to take place just prior to Satan being cast into that bottomless pit. You're either of the wedding supper or a guest of the wedding supper. Otherwise, you're going to be outside where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. Read about it in Revelations 22, verses 14 through 15. It's only two chapters away from this. It's the very last book in the Scriptures, and it says, "Blessed are those who keep the commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life and enter into that great city." Outside are all these other ones that had been following Satan. Just Satan's got this immortal soul. Those that were following her, not counting the other Malachim, because they all had immortal souls as well. That's how they were created. Man is created with a mortal soul. Trying to get this so it don't fade in and out so much here. Anyway, it says, "And he cast her into the bottomless pit, shut her up, set a seal on her, so that she should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years were finished. But after these things, she must be released for a little while." Now, this little while is 100 years. Satan's going to be released, and there's going to be a resurrection at the time that she's released. All that ever lived from the time of Adam and Eve all the way through that didn't have an opportunity for salvation, not everybody has that opportunity. They never did. But our Father in the King doesn't want any to perish. He wants everyone to make their choice. So it wouldn't be fair for these ones that didn't have that opportunity. I mean, there's been Eskimos for a long time that didn't have scriptures. They just lived their days and they ate unclean things all the days of their life. But they're going to be in a second resurrection. Okay? Even though they were idol worshippers and everything, they just didn't know. Their parents that brought them there, they slowly got away from all the laws and commandments that they did know, and in their community they set up their own righteousness. It wasn't the righteousness that would be unto us if we kept the commandments. They didn't know, okay? And they're going to be in a second resurrection with most everybody else that didn't have this opportunity. And it says here in verse 4 of Revelation 20, "And I saw thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was committed to them. Then I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for their witness to the Messiah, for the word of Yahweh." Now, see, a lot of people say, "Oh, well, these souls that were beheaded, well, you know, they're right now." No, this is after Satan's thrown into this bottomless pit for 1,000 years that these headless ones are seen, okay? Put this in context. It's not a great mystery. "And I saw thrones," after Satan was put into this bottomless pit, and before she was released. "And I saw thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was committed to them. Then I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for their witness to Yahshua and for the word of Yahweh, who had not worshipped the beast or his image, and had not received her mark on their foreheads or on their hands, and they lived and reigned with the Messiah for 1,000 years." Okay, so he's seeing these ones already lived and reigned for 1,000 years. And then he says, "But the rest of the dead did not live again until the 1,000 years were finished." That's when the second resurrection takes place. That few people even know is going to be there. But it says in the same sentence, this is the first resurrection. Not when Satan's released, not when these other deads that didn't live again until the 1,000-year millennial reign was done, but he's going to explain what this first resurrection is. Okay? Take it in context here. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he who has part in the first resurrection. Why? Because they will be kings and priests. That's who's going to be in the first resurrection. That's the only ones in the first resurrection, is the kings and priests. And of course, there are also those that are going to be witnesses at the wedding, but most of those are going to be ones that are coming out in these last days from the teachings such as I'm bringing forth, because our King wants it to be taught. These ones will be more or less the witnesses of the bride being married to the bridegroom. But the rest of the dead did not live again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he who has part in the first resurrection. Over such the second death has no power, but they shall be priests of Yahweh and of Yahshua, and shall reign with them 1,000 years. Now when the 1,000 years have expired, now everything after this point is after that 1,000-year millennial reign, and so many people don't see this. They wouldn't make as much money as they do from the prophecies and the books that they write to let you think that you're going to get into the kingdom without keeping these laws and commandments, okay, and that you're going to be in a rapture or something and not have to worry about nothing because you're going to be taken out before the wrath comes. Well, this here's talking about after the wrath has already taken place and our king's reigning 1,000 years. Now, when the 1,000 years have expired, when they've been completed, this is Revelation 27, Satan will be released from her prison and will go out to deceive the nations. Yes, it's going to be the second resurrection. It's going to be like the last 6,000 years compacted into a 100-year period. She's not going to be able to rewrite books and cause people to be deceived and bring them in slowly into the deception like she's done for 6,000 years now. When the people are resurrected and that 1,000 years is completed, that 1,000 years we're going to rebuild this entire earth. We're going to bring it back to like a Garden of Eden. That way everyone that did die and seen the earth dying over that time period, they're going to see that everything is righteous again. When they're resurrected, everything on the earth will be righteous. Even the pigs out in the field eating the manure from the horses and the cows and everything is going to be righteous. They've got their job and duty to do, and you're not supposed to be eating them now, and they won't be eating them then, except if they want to break the laws and commandments, and they want to be having what's going to come upon them here, because for 100 years as Satan is released, nobody's going to die. They're going to be alive for 100 years, and at the end of that, you're either going to get salvation or you're going to get death. There's no lukewarm to it after that. Now, when the 1,000 years have expired, Satan will be released from her prison. Verse 8, and will go out to deceive the nations which are in the four corners of the earth. Now, get this, because a lot of people thinking Gog and Magog's coming up against Jerusalem now. It's a different time period. This is after the 1,000 years. Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, whose number is as the sand of the sea. So, this is the people that fall away. They won't believe the laws and commandments, and they think, again, that they can wipe out the righteous ones. And it's not going to take place. They're going to lose a second time. Satan keeps losing. She's the ultimate loser, and everyone who follows her are losers. You've got, a third of the holy Malachim became losers in just a moment's decision where they chose to sin, and they followed Satan, and they became angels that the Catholics and others pray to. Ignorantly, I hope, because if you're doing it on purpose, well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be a totally different story. You'll be like in Malachi there, or Malachi chapter 4, where you'll be blades of grass in the oven. So anyway, this number that Gog and Magog is going to gather. Now please pay attention as well, because Gog and Magog is going to go throughout the four corners of the earth and gather unto them. I don't see Russia and China coming here to America or Hawaii or any place else, gathering people together for them to come and do a battle. No, you got Gog and Magog that's coming against Jerusalem now, but it's not speaking of this. Okay, they're not out there gathering people from the four corners of the earth to become part of their number to do this. Revelation 29. Well, let me go back and reiterate in verse 8. and will go out to deceive the nations which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, whose number is the sand of the sea. They went up on the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city. And fire came down from Yahweh out of heaven and devoured them. He's got, and they're poof, they're blades of grass in the field. On that day, it's one day it's going to take place, and they're going to be these ashes under the feet of the righteous. And fire came down from Yahweh out of heaven and devoured them. The devil who deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone. Now, it also talks about the devil deceiving everyone in Revelations 12, verse 10. Behold, Satan's cast down, who deceiveth the whole world. All the blades of grass in the field are deceived, except for those that are clothed with the laws and commandments. That's what our king will clothe them with. Everyone else, all the other blades of grass out there wearing ties and suits and, blue jeans or whatever they're wearing, but the saints will wear the laws and commandments. The devil who deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are. And they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. You have no idea how hot that place is. Satan took me there, for over 28 hours. It was horrible. I mean, I wouldn't want my worst enemy to spend 1 nanosecond in these flames, that they're going to be tormented day and night forever and ever. Then I saw a great white throne and him who sat on it, from whose face the earth and heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. Okay, now the Son doesn't even know this time, neither does the Malachim or anyone else. Only the Father knows when that takes place, not when our King returns. If our King had no idea when he'd return, he'd never told you. It'd be like the days of Noah, because he'd be full of crap. He knows when he's going to return. He knows what he's going to do for the 1,000 years after he returns. It wasn't speaking of that. It was a total subject change where it talked about, the heavens and the earth being destroyed. And the king says no one knows the hour of that. Then he goes back on again to the first subject he was before he changed it, answering that one question about what is it going to, be like when the heavens and the earth are destroyed. And he explains it. No one knows the day or the hour. But he is, speaking right here, because this came from the Father about that day. Then I saw a great white throne judgment, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away. It's going to be destroyed and remade. And there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before the Father. And books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged according to their works by the things which were written in the books. The sea gave up the dead who were in it, and the dead in Hades delivered up the dead who were in them, and they were judged each according to his works. Then death and Hades were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. See, now those in the first resurrection escape the second death. And those that will be righteous in the second resurrection, there ain't no second rapture. There's no first rapture. These are things that's going to be found. And it says, and anyone not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. So what's going on is everybody that's going to make it into the family's already known in heaven. They've been written of in the book of life. There are those who will have their name taken out. But it also talks about the righteous olive tree, where the wild olive tree, the branches can be grafted into that. They can be found in the book of life. It can include you if you actually have no understanding and choose to love the commandments and the laws and to trust our King. Your name can be written into that book, even though it's not there right now. Yes, it could be. But is your name written there? Are you keeping the laws and commandments right now? If you're not, your name still could be there. And you'll come to understanding. Our King won't let you be ignorant forever. It's going to be tough for everybody, but we can do this together. So I hope that you heard what I just said here. There's a 1,000-year millennial reign. We're going to rebuild the earth. I mean, in Jerusalem alone, it's going to take months just to get rid of the dead bodies. Blood is going to be up to the bridles of the horses. It's going to take months after our King returns to just haul the dead people out and bury them. And there's going to be people all across the face of the earth. It's going to take 1,000 years to clean them up. There's going to be crews sent out, and everywhere they find a pile of dung, which is nothing but a dead holy temple, laying on the ground there, they're going to put a flag up or something so that those that are coming behind them will know that there are remains they need to bury, because the human remains are unclean. It defiles the earth. They need to be buried. We're going to rebuild the earth to be a Garden of Eden. The whole place. It's going to be beautiful. I hope you're there to help us. But if you're not, you won't even know it. So I don't even know I'm talking to you. Hopefully you'll repent. Hopefully you'll hear these words. I don't need nobody to put comments down there telling me, how I'm wrong in this, because this is our King speaking to you. You've read it wrong. Your preacher read it wrong. Get rid of the glasses of your preacher and put your own on. Okay? That's all you got to do. Just quit the ways of the world and quit paying your tithe collectors until they teach you the truth. You can't prove what I just said wrong, because it shows right there that it's right. But prove it anyway and keep it in your hearts. I love you all. I hate what you do unless you're repenting. Then I love what you're doing because you're repenting. I hate the sins you're doing, but I love that you did so you can repent and get stronger. And may our King be glorified in all things. I say see you all later, and shalom to you that believe.